For number 1, it wants to know which expression is not equivalent. So if we look at the terms that we're trying to match, 2tq plus 4qr plus 2t plus 4q, keep those numbers in mind. As I was looking through all of the choices, I noticed in choice C, there's 24 is in there. There's no way you can multiply. So you look, 24 is positive, and you're multiplying it by by 2q. That's going to be 48q, and that is not part of the original problem. So I already know it's going to be C. I can already tell from that it's going to be C. But let's distribute it just to C. 2q times t is 2tq. That's the first term. And then we have the 2q times 24. It gives you the 48q. That's not any of these. So right there, really, you could stop and say, okay, well, I already know it's not there. But let's keep going. So in the second part, we're going to multiply 4 times t, which gives us 4t. And again, that's not any of these. So that's 2 places where they don't match, plus 4q. Now, there is a 4q in here. But you're missing the term 4qr, and you're missing the term 2t. So that's how I knew the answer had to be C. In number 2, we have to distribute the negative 4 and the t, and then we're going to be combining like terms. So let's see what that looks like. Negative 4 times 2t is negative 8t. Negative 4 times negative u is positive 4u. Now let's do this next one. T times 4u is positive 4tu. And t times 3 is 3t. And then we still have the minus t by itself. So let's combine all of the terms. Let's do the ones with t. So we have negative 8 plus 3 minus 1. So negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5, and negative 5 minus 1 is negative 6. That's negative 6t. Now I only have one term with 4tu, and I only have one term with 4u. So if we look at our choices, there's only one that even has negative 6t. It's B, which means that has to be the right answer. And if you were to distribute that 4u, you would end up with 4u times 1 is the 4u, that's where that comes from, and 4u times t is 4tu. So that's how I know my answer is B. For number 3, we're still trying to find equivalent expressions. So if you take the one that's highlighted, and if I take the one that's highlighted, on the inside, if I multiply 0.15 times 24, we get 3.6 plus h. And then 24 minus 3.6 is 20.4 plus h. Now look what happens. For this one, for choice D, if we multiply 0.85 times 24, guess what we get? We get 20.4 plus h. So the correct answer for number 3 is D. So to figure that out, there was a whole lot of work going on. You would have realized that A and B were not possibilities. So if you started by simplifying the expression in the original problem, if you started there, you could have eliminated A and B right off the bat. And then it would have been a matter of simplifying C and D to realize that D was equivalent to the original equation, or the original expression. Now, number 4, we've gone over in class. We've gone over it twice. So I'm going to teach you, or explain it to you in one different way. See if this makes more sense. So we know that in this animal shelter, 2/3 of the animals are dogs. The other third could be, guinea pigs, who knows. But of those, of the 2/3, 3/4 are male. Well, if 3/4 are male, that means 1/4, oops, I got the wrong pen. That means that 1/4 must be female, right? Doesn't that make sense? 3/4 are male, the extra 1/4 must be female. And we know there are 12 of those. Okay, so let's think of it from that point of view. 1/4 of, okay, my dogs are about to go bananas, so bear with them. 1/4 of 2/3. So a quarter of the dogs. 1/4 are female. These are your female dogs. There they go. And the 2/3 comes from their first statement, where it says 2/3 of the animals are dogs. Well, we can replace the word of with multiplication because of means to multiply. So now we have 1/4 times 2/3. This will tell us how many female dogs there are. 1/4 of 2/3. So a quarter of the dogs are female. And they're not all dogs, only 2/3 are dogs. So let's multiply. We get 2 over 12, or 1/6. So now we know that 1/6 of the animals in this animal shelter are female dogs. Now let's expand on that. They're about to go bananas. If they could just wait a minute. So 1/6 of them are females, and we know that there are 12, right? Well, imagine this represents the whole shelter. And let's break it into 6 even pieces. Okay? And 1/6 are 12. Those are your female dogs. There we go. Speaking of dogs. So that means every section has to have 12, because that's what 1/6 means, is we've divided the kennel or the shelter into 6 equal pieces. And there are 12 in each of these categories. Which means to find out how many animals are in the shelter altogether, you just have to add these all together. Or you could multiply. So 12, because multiplication is just repeated addition. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And 12 times 6 is 72. So that means there are 72 animals in the shelter. Some of you were trying to tell me how many dogs there were. That's not the question, so make sure, as I've said many times, make sure you're answering the question that's being asked. They wanted to know how many total number of animals there were. There's 72 of them, because 1/6, we figured out, 1/6 were female dogs, and they told us that there are 12 female dogs. Number 5 is another one we had covered in class. We'd actually talked about 2 different ways to solve this. So let's do it the easy way, or what I think is the easy way. So Louise sold 873 copies of a book, and she's selling them for $10.99 each. She's going to earn 52% profit from each book. How much profit will she earn in all? Well, let's find the profit for one book, and then we can multiply that times 873. So to find that, we're going to take the $10.99, and we're going to multiply it by 52%, which is the same as 0.52, which gives us 5.7148. So normally we would round because we're talking about money, but to be precise, let's keep it here until we're done. So this is how much money she gets to keep for every one book that she sells. But she didn't sell just one book, she sold 873 books. We're going to multiply, I don't know what just happened there. We're going to multiply by 873. And that will tell us the profit for all of the books. We end up with, when I multiply 873 times 5.7148, we get 4,989.0204. So this I can round to 02. And if we look at our choices, we can see that the best choice, the closest choice, would be B. So the answer for number 5 was B. For number 6, what value of y makes this true? So basically, we want to solve for y. I'm going to write a little bigger down here so it's easier for us to see. So remember, the first thing we ask is anything being added or subtracted from the variable. Well, we can see that we have a 1/4 being added to the variable term. So I'm going to subtract 1/4. Those cancel out because they're a zero pair, and we're left with 5/8 y is equal to negative 1/4. Now our next step, we always say, is there anything being multiplied or divided by the variable? And we can see that 5/8 is being multiplied by the variable. The opposite of multiplying is dividing. But with fractions, we learned that we multiply by the reciprocal when we have to divide. So these cancel out. We have y. When we multiply fractions, we multiply across. There's only one negative, so my answer is going to be negative. 1 times 8 is 8. 4 times 5 is 20. And we can simplify that. These are both even. Actually, they're both divisible by 4. So let's see, the negative stays. 8 divided by 4 is 2. And 20 divided by 4 is 5. So your answer is negative 2/5. Or you could have changed it to a decimal, which would have been negative 4/10. My kids. So we're going to multiply. So for number 7, he earns $96 per day plus $16 per hour for every hour of overtime he works. And each day he wants to earn a total of at least $130. Like, he doesn't mind if he makes more, but at least $130. So which of these inequalities reflects the number of hours of overtime he must work in order to earn at least $130? So we already know when it says at least, that means it has to be greater than or equal to 130. Now, he can work more, but at the very least he has to make $130. And it says $16 per hour, so I know that's the part that changes the total, right? He's going to make the $96 per day regardless of the overtime. He's still going to make the $96 per day. So let's start with the $96. He's making $96 plus $16 per, I think they're using H, aren't they? Yes, H. Per hour. $16 per hour. So this is what we're looking for. This is telling me, what is it telling me? It's telling me at least, right? He wants to earn at least $130. So that's why it's greater than or equal to. The 16 has the H with it because it's $16 per hour. If he works 2 hours, he's going to make $32 of overtime, etc. The $96, that doesn't change. He's making that every day regardless. So if we look at our choices, we can see the only one that matches would be choice B. You'll see in C and D, they're trying to multiply by 96H. That would mean he's making $96 per hour, which would be really nice, but that's not what's happening here. Certainly not at a clock shop. So your answer is B. For number 8, we have to solve the inequality first. Let's see, I'm going to write it over here. That's a minus. Excuse my sniffling, my allergies are so bad today. So just like when we were solving equations, we're first looking to see if anything is being added or subtracted from the variable term. I see we have a positive 5, so we're going to subtract 5 from both sides, which leaves us with negative 2x is less than negative 2. Next, we look to see if anything is being multiplied or divided by the variable, and here we have negative 2 being multiplied by the variable, and the opposite of multiplying is dividing. These cancel out. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is positive 1, and because we divided by negative, the sign changes its direction. So the answer that we have to graph is x is greater than 1. So we're going to use an open circle, which all of our choices are open circles. Our answer is 1, so I can already tell C and D are out. Because x can be any number greater than 1, you have to shade to the right, which means our choice A is correct. Choice B would be the answer if our answer was x is less than 1, but it's not, it's greater than 1, so it has to be A. For part A, we had to find the unit rate for this ride. So it says, part A, what is the unit rate of the Graft relationship? Well, conveniently, they give you this point right here. And this means that in 4 hours, they traveled 60 kilometers. But unit rate means per 1 hour. So if they're traveling 60 kilometers for 4 hours, all we have to do is divide. If we divide both of these by 4, that's going to give us per 1 hour. And 60 divided by 4 is 15. So part A, the unit rate is 15 kilometers per hour. In part B, write an equation that relates the distance in kilometer that Kylie rides, which would be y, and the time in hours she rides, which would be x. Well, all you had, and I even gave you a clue here, all we're writing is y equals kx, but instead of k, we use the unit rate, which in this case was 15. Now in part C, they introduced Dave. And Dave is starting 120 kilometers from the ending point also, but he starts an hour after Kylie. And he's traveling an average speed of 18 kilometers per hour. So they want us to use x representing the time since Kylie started her ride. We want to write an equation that shows the number of hours it's going to take Dave to reach the ending point. All using Kylie's x, representing the time since Kylie started her ride. So we still need to make it equal to 120, because he still has to ride 120 miles. His unit rate is 18, so it's 18 kilometers per hour, but we're going to take out 18 of those because he's an hour behind. So he lost out on 18 kilometers because he didn't ride for that first hour. So that's your equation for part C. In part D, now we have to solve the equation. So if we say 18x minus 18 is 120, if we add 18 to both sides, right? Because is anything being added or subtracted to the variable term? Yeah. 18 is being subtracted, so the opposite is to add, which leaves us with 18x is equal to 138. And if we divide, because 18 is being multiplied by x, we have to do the opposite, which is to divide, or the inverse operation. When we divide, we get x is 7.7, or 7 7/10. For part E, now we want to know who came in first, second, and third place for this race. Well, we know that for the first girl, for Kylie, so Kylie's equation was, what was it? She had 15 miles per hour. So her equation is y equals 16x, okay, where x is hours and y is total miles. So to figure out how long it takes her, we would put 120 in for y, because that's the length of the race. 120 kilometers is equal to 16x. If we divide both sides by 16, we get exactly 8, which means it takes Kylie 8 hours to ride 120 kilometers. Now for David, was it Dave? Dave, we just calculated. It takes him 7.7 hours. So I know that Kylie's going to come in after Dave. The new one is Mary, and she has a head start. She's starting 10 kilometers closer to the ending point, and her average speed is 16 kilometers per hour. So it's y equals, oops, I did Kylie wrong. I just noticed that. Kylie was 15, not 16. So Kylie is 15 miles an hour. Mary is 16 kilometers per hour. But she's not running the whole race. She's only riding 110 kilometers, right? Because it says she's 10 kilometers closer. So we're going to calculate it as 110 is equal to 16x. Which I just noticed. I've got 16 on my brain, I guess. It's all the congestion. When we divide 110 by 16, we get 6.875 hours. Which means Mary comes in first because it takes her the least amount of time to finish the race. Dave comes in second, and Kylie comes in third.